riding horse. So let's establish the 5 circles. So the obvious one, the circle of the arms. And then the equivalent in the legs, the circle of the legs. And then there's another circle here. So the arms have a curve like this, like you're holding a big ball. And the same in the legs, like you're sitting on a ball. And then the final one, which is the curve of the spine. And now bring the mind to the sacrum. So let's make this shape with the hands over the sacrum. The sacrum is like an arrowhead that's pointing down. The hands resting on the sacrum help ease it forwards a little, which is what we want. The sacrum should feel as though it's beneath the heart. So the heaviness of the sacrum gives the heart a lift upwards. Your weight is flowing down through your body, down your legs, and the support of the ground is flowing up. You give the ground your weight, and it gives you its support. And now bring the hands up and make the similar shape over your sternum. The sternum is like an arrowhead that's pointing up. The gravity draws your heavy sacrum down. The heavens draw your light heart up. And now let's just try the 2 circles. You can think of this as retrieving ward off or as tracing 2 circles. When I turn, I split into 2, a left and a right. This is what I'm feeling here. So I don't want to move from leg to leg too much. Keep your spine stationary, but just turn around it. When you turn, one side of your body goes back, one side of your body goes forwards. Yield and attack. Try some of the breathing, just to get the spine flexing back and forth. So my head rears back and then my head whips forwards. That's all coming from the action in my midriff. This is the muscles in my lower back, pulling my head back. This is my belly, pulling my head forwards. And now just the index fingers up. The index fingers are now like markers. I want to keep my head in between them. And now I'm just going to turn, but very much turning the hips. These bones are just twisting either side. And I let my head stay with the hips. So I'm not looking at anything in the room. My eyes have gone blurred. The tip of the tongue on the roof of the mouth, the sense that you're looking back into that point. Like effortless movement. And now trying to keep the hips still. So my legs are holding my hips still. And now I turn, but without the hips moving. So I'm twisting my shoulders around. This is the waist. Previously, it was the hips that were turning. Now it's my waist. The waist can move independently of the hips. The waist is a muscle. The hips are bones. And then let the arms down. And just the first warm-up exercise, I want to feel it starting in the waist. My hips pull around as well, but the waist starts everything. Muscular twisting. And what we want to feel is the waist becoming everything. So the waist descending down into the legs. So my legs are part of my waist. Previously, when I was just turning the hips, my legs were pushing my hips around like this. Like there's a platform here, my legs are just turning it from side to side. Now I want to feel like the legs are reaching down from here and catching the ground. This leg is straightening and then I catch the ground and that pulls me back. So there's this clawing muscularity. It's not just pushing. In Tai Chi, whenever you push and extend, you do it with a view of returning. You're always turning back. The activation of the waist sparks the spirit. The waist has real bite. torque. Torque. That's the operative word, really. Muscular turning. Back to riding horse. Bring the hands behind again. So just feel the triangle of the sacrum. Feel it really big. It's a big bone, but we feel it bigger than it really is. It's very dominant, but we can't see it. This is the problem. Most people are completely unaware of their sacrum. We want it to be the most dominant, prominent thing in the body. Bring the hands to the sternum. Feel this lift. And then let's just move from leg to leg. As my weight comes into the leg, there's a sense of my weight flowing down, but there's also a sense of the support of the ground flowing up to meet that and stop me from just collapsing. Feel the ground as something that rises up the leg. So it's coming up my leg. And my yielding is just me accepting the support of the ground. I'm accepting that strength that's coming up my leg. Now let's try this one where we do the circle, trying not to incline forwards too much. Always trying to find ways of stressing the legs. So here I really want to go down into my legs. People hate this because to go into your legs, you have to wake up. It's the last thing most people want to do. Changing direction. If you can't bend down and get into a squat, then there's always a barrier between you and the ground. There's a fearful barrier in the mind. And then just wind it down. It's an awakeness that is a readiness for anything. It's just spirit. Backwards and forwards now, but now really feeling the full and empty. So what happens when I fill? When I fill the leg, my weight comes into the foot, but the ground comes up to support me. This is what we're feeling now. Feeling the earth rising through me. Support and trust. The earth is always willing to support me. I just have to learn to trust it. If I don't trust it, then I will keep too much tension in my legs. So as I come into this foot, I want the sense that my leg is relaxing to receive that support. And then feel the emptying. The emptying is like a flow out. I'm flushing out the strength. The emptying is really difficult because we want to keep tension in our legs all the time. So to just let this leg relax and empty is difficult. It says in the classics, clearly distinguish full and empty. This is what we're trying to do here. The leg is filling, and then the leg is emptying. And I want to get them as complete as possible. And then if you can, just keep it relaxed around the sacrum so that this supporting energy that's coming up can come all the way to the top of the head. Now let's try with the other foot forwards. Just doing the way we normally do it, which is reaching out. It's the same exercise. Here I'm just thinking in terms of yielding to another person rather than yielding to the ground. So I'm accepting that other person in. Here we're concentrating on the point where the attack, the straightening, turns into a roundening, where the attack becomes yield. I want that to be an opening, a softening beneath my collarbones. The arm goes out and then it has to go around. That's the yielding. As Yang Cheng Fu said, when you are attacked and you yield, the first thing you must do is hollow your chest. First thing that happens is that this draws in and softens, and that makes the arm go out into a circle. So it's an emotional response to the other. It's something that happens in the heart. This is what makes it internal work rather than external. If you're just going through the motions and just exercising, then it's external work. Here it's something that happens in my heart-mind first, and then it translates into the body. bring it to riding horse again. Place the hands over the sacrum again. And then up to the sternum. Having the mind on the sternum should help the sacrum relax down a little bit better. Now let's figure of 8 around the feet. So when I'm standing still in riding horse, for example, in a symmetrical posture, then I'm like a ball. As soon as I turn, that ball becomes a figure of 8. It splits into 2, like cell division. Let it become a version of waving hands in the clouds. So there's a figure of 8 going on here with my Dan Chen Ming Men as the center of the figure of 8. But there's also a figure of 8 like this on this plane. So here I'm looping over my head and then down the midline under this foot, this hand loops up. And now, with a smaller stance, and using the figure of 8 to move the feet. So as I go around this foot, it allows this foot to come up. So I want to feel the figure of 8 bringing my weight into the foot so that the other one can be released. So you have to see the figure of 8. It's just a bit bigger than the foot so that I really get into the outside edge here. With one leg off the ground, I want this feeling that I'm falling out of my circle, because the leg that's come up will want to pull me into the circle like this. So I really have to lean on that outside edge. Feel the difference between the two spaces, this side and this side. For me, there's like a real brightness and openness to this side, and this side is all congested and heavy and dark. Part of me has to be always reaching to the space beyond. That's my cheerfulness, really. It's just a willingness to explore. So the part of you that wants to go in this direction is like the adventurous child that wants to explore. And the part of you that just wants to fall back into 2 feet on the ground is just the fearful, depressed adult. And now let's try the stepping exercise, but using the same technique. So I go around this foot, step here, around this foot, back around this foot, and then Feel the weight going into the leg. Feel it as the ground coming up into you. Something in you is really accepting of this support. The main problem area is the hips, the sacroiliacs, the groin. The struggle is to keep all this relaxed as you step. It tends to tense up when you bring a foot off the ground, and it also tends to tense up when you place the foot back down again. So when I put my foot down, I sort of seize up here to make sure that when I bring the weight into it, I have strength. What I want to do is just place the foot down, just relax here, just open up, and then I receive the ground up into me instead of perching myself upon it. So you're yielding to the ground. You're accepting its support. You're trusting it. And it's exactly the same action in the hip as we got in the shoulder when we did this exercise. So I put the foot down, then this has to relax here, this point in the inguinal fold, so that I can accept the ground up. And then the same thing here. The way John used to work on it and talk about it, he used to say that when you bring the weight into the foot, the knee should round out. As though, as I come into the front foot, my knee is trying to get behind the other person. It's the same with the arm. The elbow rounds out. But I want to find the relaxation inside that allows the knee to round out. I don't just want to work mechanically, then I'll hurt myself. So as I come into the foot, I relax. Something in me just relaxes and accepts. And this knee then just goes out into an embrace. The same way that when you accept someone, let them in, you embrace them. So I'm embracing the ground here, and it comes up. And that's the figure of 8. And now let's try this one. So trying to keep the weight pretty much in the middle. When the heel comes up, if anything, I'm bringing my weight more into that foot. So this really strengthens the feet if you practice it. And it loosens this whole area, which is what we want. Feel the spine snaking. The snaking spine. It's the beginning of the figure of eight exercise where we have two separate figures of eights in each side of the body. That's what we're working towards. So this hand is going over its figure of eight, and this hand is coming underneath its figure of eight. This hand is trying to get over my head. This hand is trying to scoop underneath this foot. Now just trying the figure of eight exercise. So what we want here is to really get it in the waist. So it's really working this part of the body. Let's just try some side bends first. So if we flex this way with the breathing exercise, and now let's flex left and right. The belt of the waist. So the area above the hips, I have my abdominals here, my spinatus erectus at the back, my obliques here. Together, it makes a tight belt that can whip the spine in any direction. That's the waist. The figure of eight exercise. I want to get it in the waist. So in the same way when we exercised at the beginning, we got the hips turning side to side. So that feels very light, almost like I'm floating around. And the best way to work on that is to have someone behind you doing the turning for you. So I'm just standing here like this, and they've got their hands on my hips and they're just turning me. And then I can feel how it feels when my body is moved, not from my own volition. So that's this sense of floating. Now, when we kept the hips rigid and just turned from here, this is the waist. So now it's really like you're working this area against resistance all the time. So when you get the figure of eight going, it's like you're inside syrup or something that's really viscous, and you're having to work really hard to get any movement. And we want to lose this sense of my body being behind the action. So when we're doing the two circles, it's very much something that's happening in front of me. And normally when we do the figure of eight, it's like this. Now I want the feeling that the figure of eight is as much behind me as it is in front of me. It's like my waist is trying to wring out my spine. And the waist reaches all the way down the leg to the ground. So each leg becomes part of the waist. So the waist is this belt, and it's quite tight. It feels like it's really pulling against the spine. I want the same feeling in the legs. So my hamstrings can kick in, my quads can kick in, and it's just producing this tight sheath of muscle around the legs that's working and writhing all the time. So this is very important because this is something that you won't get from meditation. It's just real hard work, but it's the joy of hard work. You're exhilarated, you're sweating. And it leaves you exhausted. So now just back. So each practice session is the same, really. We start off trying to relax the bad tension, and we finish the session by trying to induce the good tension. Bad tension doesn't want to let go. Good tension is really dynamic. You can pull it in, you can let it out. It breathes. But there's always this sense of the fight with good tension. Part of your body is fighting the other part. One side is fighting the other. So it's eminently single-weighted. Now, without single-weightedness, you just never get spirit. Now let's just bring it up. Let's just do this again. You just want the feeling that this is always going on in the background. So the heel's coming up, and as the heel comes up, you're going around the front of the foot. And then as the heel goes down, you're going around the heel. So now you have a figure of 8 inside each foot. I'm fond of this exercise because it was the last thing that we worked on before I left England. Let it calm down, but it's still there, buzzing away. Feel the sacrum hanging down through that. And feel the sternum reaching up through that. The earth comes up into me, if I can trust it. But similarly, the heavens come down into me, if I can trust it. This is prayer. You need a relationship with God, otherwise you won't get energy from the heavens. And how you conceive of God is your business. Just a sense of something that's not terrestrial, something that's not of this earth. It's from somewhere completely different. There's a story of Michael Tilson Thomas, who's this American classical music conductor. And he was working with Stockhausen, conducting Stockhausen. And Stockhausen was supervising. And at one point, Stockhausen came up to him and just whispered to him. He said, "You know, I come from Sirius." So he comes from one of the stars. And Michael Tilson Thomas, when I read it, he said, that was the point where I lost all interest in him. And I never conducted him again. Now, for me, that would have been the point where I started to become really interested in him. So there should be part of you that is reaching for the stars all the time. This is one of John's big things. He said to me once, if you get your inspiration from the ground, from the earth, then you'll always be limited. He says you have to get your inspiration from the stars. This is his sort of correction to Nitzan's obsession with the root, with this terrestrial root. For John, the root that you have with the heavens is far more important. Partly because it's the one that we ignore. So it's the one we need to work on to right the balance.